Hey guys. The other day I was watching this new movie on DVD called Cop Car, starring Kevin Bacon. It's about two kids who steal this cop car from a very corrupt sheriff, and then that's Kevin Bacon, by the way, the corrupt sheriff. So Kevin Bacon chases these kids down for the rest of the movie. Pretty good. I'll review this later on. I mean, not in this video. In this video, I want to talk about my top 10 favorite car movies. This one does not make the list, but it is pretty decent though. So, yeah, I wanted to make a top 10 favorite car movies after watching that. You know, just for my own benefit, and maybe you guys might want to know what my favorite car movies are. Maybe, maybe not. So, first off, let's say this. What I consider to be a car movie, I consider car movies to be a movie where driving is central to the theme of the movie, or at least it advances the plot. So for that reason alone, I have to eliminate movies like Bullitt. Bullitt has my favorite car chase of all time. That involves Steve McQueen chasing around a 68 Dodge Charger in his 68 Mustang. Freaking best car chase ever, but unfortunately I don't consider that movie to be a car movie. I consider that to be more of a detective movie with a very awesome car scene in it. Also, the story has to be good. It just can't be one really sweet car scene, because without a story, I don't consider that to be a good movie at all. So for that reason alone, I'm going to disqualify movies like the original Gone in 60 Seconds, and also I'll disqualify the original Vanishing Point, because even though those car scenes are freaking fantastic, the movies themselves suck. They just suck for me. Now remember, I said the original Vanishing Point. I had no issues with the remake, and that's pretty controversial because most people consider the remake to be crap, and then the original to be the superior, but I'm the opposite. So, there's stuff like that. And also, my favorite car of all time would be the General Lee. That's my favorite iconic car anyways. That's a 69 Dodge Charger. Unfortunately, the Dukes of Hazzard does not make it in my top 10 favorite car movies of all time, because I thought the theatrical release was pretty bad, and I also thought the made-for-TV movies, although decent, they were not as good as my top 10 favorite car movies of all time. So that's why you're not going to see the Dukes of Hazzard on this top 10 list. So that's my criteria. The movie and story has to be good. Driving has to be central to the movie. And also, as I hinted at, a car movie can be either theatrical or made for TV. So for that reason alone, a movie like The California Kid will actually make it onto my top 10 favorite car movies, because that was made for TV, but it's a freaking fantastic car movie. So let's go ahead and run down my list of favorite car movies, and I'll mention the cars, or at least the main cars that they used. So let's start with number 10, and I'll work my way down to my favorite. So my 10th favorite car movie of all time this is a comedy now, and it's Chevy Chase. Chevy Chase's National Lampoon's Vacation. I think that was made in 83 or so, definitely early 80s. And as I said, it's a comedy, and it's a road trip movie. It's about Chevy Chase taking his family on a road trip to visit this theme park called Wally World. And it's not about getting to Wally World that makes this movie, it's all about the road trip as they get there. And Chevy Chase actually had a car, planned out for this road trip, and unfortunately he couldn't get it, so he has to settle for what they call the Wagon Queen Family Truckster, which in reality is a 1979 Ford Limited Country Squire that was heavily modified, probably for legal purposes. But yeah, it was heavily modified, but very iconic actually. It was green, had all these suitcases on top. The fender, or the grill on the front, was not stock. It was definitely modded to make it look slightly different than your standard Ford, station wagon. So very funny movie, very entertaining, and I liked seeing that car used as their method of transportation. So my number 9 favorite car movie would be Days of Thunder. I'm not really big into racing movies per se, But Days of Thunder is such a well-made movie. It's so classic. There are so many lines that you can quote from that movie, and so many scenes that are just now like sketched into my head and to many other people who watch movies in the 90s. Such a great movie. I think even if you're not a car fan, I think you're going to appreciate Days of Thunder. That stars Tom Cruise in one of his best roles, I think, in my opinion. And in that movie, these are just like stock cars, really. It was a 1990 Chevrolet Lumina NASCAR car. So my number 8 favorite car movie of all time. This is a horror movie. This is John Carpenter's Christine. And that's about this, it's a 1958 Plymouth Belvedere that goes around killing people. Basically, it's a car with a mind of its own, kind of like Herbie, except with Christine. Christine actually kills people. Like, if anyone, like drives a wedge between Christine and the owner, then Christine's gonna kill you. Or if someone, harasses the owner, Christine's gonna kill you. Christine's really possessive, and she's very iconic. If you saw a red 58 Plymouth Belvedere just driving around, you're immediately going to think Christine, because that's how iconic this car is. And the movie itself is pretty entertaining as well. So let's move on to my number 7 favorite car movie of all time. That would be The Highwaymen. And this is the one starring Jim Caviezel. So basically, this story is kind of like a revenge story. So Jim Caviezel is one of the main stars in this movie, and at the beginning, you see his wife get run over by this maniac driving this Cadillac Eldorado. It's, to be more exact, it is a 72 Cadillac Fleetwood Eldorado. So Jim Caviezel is so filled with hate that he takes his own road trip and spends the rest of his life chasing this bad guy down. I'm not sure what he does for money, but he spends the rest of his life chasing this bad guy down. And the best car in this movie is Jim Caviezel's car. Jim Caviezel drives a 68 Plymouth Barracuda, and it's freaking awesome. It's a super stock Hemi, and one of my favorite Mopars of all time, I would say. It's red, and at one point he actually loses his car door, so he has to replace it with a black car door that he finds in a junkyard. So it looks like junk when he puts this black door on it, but at the same time it makes the car even more iconic looking. And this car actually makes another appearance in an episode of Malcolm in the Middle. Very random. So that's Highwaymen. Very good movie. Very, very, very entertaining movie, sorry. Okay, number 6. Now, you might not consider this to be a car movie, but I do. This is a Drive, starring Ryan Gosling. And it's about this stunt driver. He falls in love with this girl who already has I'm not sure if she's married to the guy or not, or if it's just her boyfriend. But basically this guy, the other guy, Ryan Gosling, he is such a great driver. He gets his money by being a stunt driver, and then he makes even more money as a getaway driver. So this leads to certain situations where he has to help out his love interest boyfriend. It's kind of awkward, and it leads to a very very violent end, I would say. Now, there aren't really any iconic cars in this movie, at least not to me. Ryan Gosling drives a 73 Chevrolet Chevelle Malibu, which is, it's alright. The paint job's kind of crap. But my favorite car scene in that movie is the beginning, in which case he drives a really crappy car. It's a 2006 Chevrolet Impala, and he drives that car because it's easier to blend in with the populace, because the car isn't very stand out, so he drives that car at the beginning. So that's Drive. Very good movie. That's another movie where if you're not a car fan, I think you would appreciate this movie just because it's such a well-made movie. Alright, now going down to number 5, this is The California Kid. And this is actually made for TV, but it's a freaking great movie. Basically, it's a movie about this guy. At the beginning, his brother gets ran off a cliff by this really corrupt sheriff in this town that's known for being a speed trap. So this guy, who is Martin Sheen, freaking awesome actor, he goes into this town, and he does some investigative work on his own, and at the end he basically challenges the sheriff to a race, and he basically kicks the sheriff in the balls, like figuratively speaking. Very great movie. And the two cars that you see in this movie, the two main cars, well, the California Kid is a 1934 Ford coupe. It's very distinctive. It's black, and it's got these flames that go down the side and on the hood. But my favorite car in the movie is actually the sheriff's car. The sheriff drives this really this overgrown what is it? It's a 57 Plymouth Belvedere. So that's another Plymouth Belvedere. It looks almost like Christine, except this one has a cop markings on it. It's pretty sweet. And Martin Sheen makes his comment that the sheriff's tires are too big, and they actually do look pretty big on that car. So that's actually my favorite car in that movie, is the sheriff's car. So number 4, my fourth favorite car movie is Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry. That's a classic movie. And ironically, the sheriff in Dirty Mary, Crazy Larry, is also the sheriff in the California Kid. It's the same freaking actor. But let's see, the cars in this movie, let's see, that for the most part, the main car is a 1966 Chevrolet Impala sports sedan. But later on, they switch it out for a more badass looking car. It's a 69 Dodge Charger Road Track Edition. And that one's yellow. When most people think of that movie, they think of the Dodge Charger, but to be honest, the main car that they drive is a 66 Chevrolet Impala sports sedan. Really good movie. It's basically just one long chase. You know, they're being pursued by the police, and then you got these 3 people who are on the run. They're always getting into fights. It's mainly between Mary and Larry. They keep bickering the entire time, and it's pretty entertaining, actually. Okay, so my number 3 favorite car movie is... You guys ready for this? Now, I don't feel bad for leaving out Dukes of Hazzard, because this one makes up for it. This is Smokey and the Bandit. This is the original Smokey and the Bandit, starring Burt Reynolds, and he drives a Pontiac Trans Am. It's a 77 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am, and it's very iconic. When that movie came out, and part 2 came out, and so forth, a lot of people started driving these Firebirds, trying to look just like Burt Reynolds, him in his cowboy hat. Yeah, I think this movie helped to make a lot of sales for Pontiac, so I think Pontiac owes a lot of debt to this movie. There's also 2 other vehicles that are pretty iconic. You got the Kenworth. That's a big semi-truck. It's got that big cowboy artwork on the side. And then Smokey himself, that's this sheriff. He drives a 77 Pontiac Le Mans. And yeah, there's no way they're gonna catch freaking Smokey and the Bandit, freaking Bandit 1. It's a great movie. It's a very light-hearted comedy, I would call it, but the car scenes are fantastic. Movie itself is fantastic, very entertaining. And that's one of those, this is one of the movies that really made the CB popular in the car movies, because they spend their entire time communicating back and forth. So, fantastic movie. Love it. And I consider that movie to be in the same vein as Dukes of Hazzard, because basically it's about moonshine, and these guys driving these really sweet rides to get away from the law. Freaking love it. Alright, so, getting on to my second favorite movie of all time. Now, some of you might hate me for this, but I already warned you guys this is gonna happen. I loved the 1997 remake of Vanishing Point, starring Viggo Mortensen. I thought this movie was way better than the original Vanishing Point. The only thing that the original Vanishing Point had over on the remake were that there were more car scenes and there was a lot more car action. But as a movie, it just didn't fly. It was just boring. I just got bored watching the original Vanishing Point. But with this movie, you have a more sympathetic hero, in my opinion, and the reason why he's driving away from the police and not able to stop makes a lot more sense in this movie than in the original Vanishing Point. Granted, the original Vanishing Point was more of an existential type movie, or I don't know, it just had like a higher calling to the movie itself. But yeah, I definitely love the remake way better. But yeah, the car in this movie, in both movies actually, is the same freaking car. It's a 1970 Dodge Challenger Road and Track Edition RT. Very beautiful. It's white and it's got these Colorado plates on it. If you've never seen this movie, they actually mention this car in Death Proof. That's a Tarantino movie. Actually, in that movie, in Tarantino's movie, they have another white Challenger that they pay homage to for Vanishing Point. They even have a whole conversation about Vanishing Point in that movie. Okay, so let's go down to my number one favorite car movie of all time. You guys ready? This is Two-Lane Blacktop. Very old movie. And it's basically about this driver and his mechanic. That happens to be their names in the movie, basically. So there's this driver and the mechanic, and they go around making more money by racing people. Like, they'll go into like hangouts, like picking car fights. You know, like duping these guys into a race against their antiquated 55 Chevy. And so that's how they make money on the side. But eventually they get into this cross-country race against this older gentleman who drives a Pontiac, a 1970 Pontiac GTO. So they go all the way across, and they have a wager, a very big wager. Basically, whoever loses this race has to give away their car. But that's not the point of the movie. The point of the movie is just seeing these people, go at it on the road. And they're really not going at it, to be honest. Once they make the wager that they're racing each other, they're not really that intent on beating the other person to their destination. But they keep making all these pit stops along the way, to get food, to just chill out, and to enter like local races when they should just be racing each other. The movie itself is art. Actually, Criterion has its Criterion DVD release for this movie. Just because it's such a beautiful movie. This is another movie where you don't need to be a car fan to appreciate this movie, because it is considered like art house. But yeah, if you are a car fan, you will love this movie, because the entire time it's just these two guys and this girl who hitches a ride, driving around in this 55 Chevy. And then it also cuts back and forth to the other guy who drives a 1970 Pontiac GTO. I can't explain why the movie's good. It just is. It takes us back to a time where America was more, more free-flowing, I suppose. I don't know, it just had this feel to it, this really, carefree feel to it, that, just made you miss these, good old days. Even though I didn't live in the good old days, it just made you feel like you'd rather live in this time, where the road will take you anywhere you want to go. Like the possibilities are endless. It's just a great movie altogether. That one definitely is the lasting impression. It's not my favorite cars of all time, but it's definitely my favorite car movie of all time. So, sorry that this video was so long. I tried to keep it short, but I failed. What is it? It's already 18 minutes. But anyways, do you agree with my list? Do you disagree with my list? What are your favorite car movies of all time? And since we're on the subject, you might as well list your favorite cars of all time and your favorite car scenes of all time. And I'll try to review Cop Car down the road. Get it? Down the road. But yeah, I just wanted to list my top 10 favorite car movies of all time. And I mainly want to hear what your favorite car movies of all time are. You can make a top 10, make a top 20, or you can just mention your favorite car movie of all time. I just want to hear your feedback, basically.